Yeah, I think we're good to go. We're live. Hello, I'm Charlotte, and I'm a volunteer at So Green. And the great thing about this place is that it's always full of new ideas. And last summer, after Georgia and Josefina had received some wonderful wool, I started a project, and it's kind of a blanket, large blanket, or call it a quilt, which was made with patched squares and on which I just used a fancy, totally random embroidery. But so I'm showing it to you like that. And since there was a ton of fabric and the pieces are too small to make garments, we've decided to make it as an activity, prepare some kits, so you could actually do your own blanket. So this is the one we're going to be doing today. I'm going to demonstrate it to you. So yeah, it's too big so that I can show it to you fully, but you get an idea. And I'm going to show you some pictures along the way to guide you through this fun activity. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll be ready to go. Here we go. So yeah, I call this activity an heirloom blanket. This one in particular was made with pieces which I believe are like wool and silk. So it's just so soft, it's wonderful. But for winter, of course, you know, 100% wool is even warmer. So you can see a pic with the details of the embroidery once the blanket is folded. Here is how your kit is going to be looking like. Hope you can see the picture, but you're going to basically receive about 56 squares. Each square measures 9 by 9 inches, and there's, you know, half an inch on each side for seam allowance. So let's get moving. So this is the way you're going to receive your kit. Squares already pre-cut for you. My advice is that along the way in the project, you keep measuring, spot measuring, so that you make sure that when you're going to assemble all the squares together, there's not too big of a difference. So here you see the different colors that I've used for this one. So the main variant is around the gray. And then I found some old pieces of fabric home to add some colors. So you see on the right-hand side, a little more detail. I'm gonna move on. So once you have all your squares prepared, ideally you want to work on a table and start bringing the colors together, do some color matching, play with the contrast. You see, I actually had 2 remnant pieces, just 2 single squares of like a fuchsia and then a bright red and black plaid. So I use that just as a note inside the whole blanket. I can actually show you where they are, just to give you an idea about how it kinds of gives contrasts, you know, in among the various pieces. So here is one, and let's look for the other one. And you know, sometimes with the colors it can clash, and it's even better because it's just gonna do a splash of color in your artful piece. Let's move on. So still on your table, the best way to prepare your quilt is to actually lay down all the pieces. So you see on the left-hand side, I have lined up almost 3.5 rows of fabric. And so you start with the upper square on the top left corner, and then you keep adding down. Further, I'm going to show you, I've actually labeled all those little squares, but that way you kind of prepare a mock of your piece so that you have a visual idea about how it's going to look like. On the picture on the right, so what I found out is that, first of all, I was working a little bit in the dark because it was later in the day, but I realized, oh, I just needed something else. So I went back and I found these gorgeous pieces. It's kind of you know, in diagonal, and there are some sparks of orange, yellow, purple, and pink, and I thought it would add some vibe. So don't hesitate to be creative with the pieces you may find at home, even if it's not necessarily wool, but that just, again, it's just to give a splash to your art piece. So you see, it's actually my favorite part here. When I see the final rendering, I think you know, I'm just ready to get to my sewing machine because it's quite a job to sew and assemble all those pieces. But this is where, you know, my eyes are just like, oh yes, I'm so happy. Okay, so you see here, I've labeled all the pieces, all the rows. So vertical rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So when I do the final assembly, I remember, and it's gonna stick to the previous picture I showed you with the mop. So how you do that, so you see, for instance, the 7th row. So you take your pieces, I actually have prepared a couple here. Yeah, let's do, where's this one? And so make sure you take the woolly side, woolly against woolly. And so you start pinning. I know a lot of you are going to probably pin that way, so I'll show it to you like that. It's so dark for you to see. Doing my best here. I'll show. Okay, so you start pinning. Okay, I know for me, you know, the way I learned sewing years back, I was spinning in the same direction. I know you have to stop the machine a little more often, but I mean, for me, it's a little more stable. That's it. So both ways are fine. So this is one square, then you take, separate them. So then you take another one and you repeat. Okay, so you should have 7 rows of 8 squares. So 7 horizontally and then 8 vertically. So you see here on the picture on the right hand side, I've prepared all the vertical rows, and you can actually see that the one down below I've started the sewing. So let's get to your sewing machine. So you see how I prepared each individual row. It's a good idea at this point, in between each square, to measure so that you have the right finishing size, which is going to be 8 by 8. The squares cut are 9 by 9. Finished, they're going to look like 8 by 8. And even if there's a little variation, don't worry. Those different pieces of wool react differently, so there's ways to play when you assemble. But just to be on the safe side, once in a while, when you suspect a fabric is a little too stretchy, just measure so that you fix what's needed to finish with 8 by 8 squares. Okay, so here on the left, I am at my sewing machine. And it goes pretty fast, actually. You know, I was telling you the mock picture is what I prefer, but actually, you know, you get going and it goes pretty fine. On the right, so you see, I did clean finish each square for several reasons. First, wool creates a lot of lint. Second, it's because, especially for the fabric on the right-hand side, it's kind of very loose, very stretchy. So not that I'm planning to just really wear and tear this blanket, but I think it just makes it stronger, a little more stable. So you don't have to, it's up to you. For me, I just do it. I just did it this time. So the other thing is that once, oh, sorry, went a little too fast here. Doop, doop. Where is my picture? Did it disappear? No. Here it is. Yeah. So yeah, make sure that you flatten with the iron. So use the wool setting. If you are not sure, steam, it's a good idea to use an old thin cotton fabric, dampen it, apply it on top of your wool, and then flatten with your iron. That way you won't damage the fabric by, you know, applying the iron too strongly. Okay, so you see how it looks from the back once I have flattened with the iron. Oops, sorry, I went a little too fast. So here, this is another fun part. It's when you start aligning and assembling from the back each single row you have prepared. So yeah, you know, you just pin, you just assemble, you use your own technique. Make sure that the angles are corresponding between each single row. So here on the left side, I am actually assembling 2 different rows. So yeah, be careful at the angles. If you flatten well the fabrics, even though you flatten well, sometimes the piece of fabric underneath kind of gets stuck. So for me, I've had to redo a few ones. It's no big deal, but it's kind of your quality control along the way. Otherwise it's gonna get bulky when you finish the blanket. And you see on the right hand side, so I'm just about to iron. Of course, you iron from the back. Okay, you flatten the seams from the back. You will do a final ironing on the front when you're done. So I just played with colors. I thought it was just so much fun. So I hope you're having fun with your own project. And I'm dying to see it when you're done. Eventually, we're going to do a class, probably on Zoom for the time being, but it will be fun to see each other's project. So here, that's what I said. So once you're done flattening all things from the back, you can just gently apply your iron on the front. It starts to look like something, right? So I played with it, made a picture, like, you know, it would get me going for the last step, because actually making the backing is not as fun as making the top part with all the squares. And I wanted to show you this picture because you see on the lower right part, you see that my squares are not fully matching, okay? But that's okay. So just check on a regular basis. Even if you check, you may have some slight differences, but overall, it's gonna good look. It's gonna look good in the end on your project. So yeah, ta-da! The backing now. So for the backing, I had this gorgeous, it's a dryer wool that I could use, but I didn't have enough to do the entire size of the blanket. So I just tricked it. And I used some other gray pieces. So mine looks like that. I'll show it to you on a graphic. You know, I basically reproduced the top part and using 9x9 squares on each angle. I used the same color for the centerpiece. And then I used some gray color for the sides, for the 4 sides. So we're gonna provide you also with some fabric for the backing. You can do any part, any design, any graphic you want. It's up to you. I was actually thinking, and I'm gonna draft, you know, a piece, like you could do something like that, you know, very simply, depending on the fabrics that you will have. I hope you can see, depending on the fabrics that you will have in your kit, you may have to think of something creatively. So on the right hand side, you see how all the rows play together once I have flattened the whole fabric before I assemble with a backing. Okay, so here I am almost done actually. So the picture on the side, on the left hand side, you can see it's my final seams that I have to do manually. So basically you put again wool part front over front when you're done with your backing, and make sure also for the backing you flatten all the seams from the back. And basically it's like making a giant pillowcase, and you have to close it sewing by hand, like I did here on the left hand side. And this is the final look of my blanket. So voila, that's it for this video. Again, we may likely be doing a class, so I hope it was fun for you. I'm gonna leave it there for you and just say bye-bye and see you later.